So, this is PedalBox.
And we're going to build this chassis that we bought on eBay into something. Probably a car, but we don't exactly know what we're going to put in it right now. Made a couple of choices and sort of put together some ideas in the last few days, and hopefully we're going to kind of pin it down a bit more in the next few.
Yeah, we were hoping to get some kind of direction off the chassis. It came with a bunch of stuff that Aid'll run on in a second, but unfortunately it did kind of leave us a bit of a blank slate as it turned out.
Yeah, there was some really useful parts if you're another project. There was a diff and some half shafts from Ford rear end, but there wasn't actually any of the rear end to go with it, so we'd have to buy that. There was a pair of calipers. I say a pair, one was for a Princess, one was from a Metro. There was a box of valve springs, rockers, some hubs from a Metro, one of which was rusted, but a new set of bearings, a lower suspension arm, some panels, an oil cooler, a couple of steering wheels, and just then miscellanea after that, just all sorts of tat that we ended up throwing away because it was perished.
Yeah, none of it really mattered in the end. The only things we reckon we're going to salvage is the oil cooler, which is actually in pretty good shape, and always a good thing to fit to any sort of turboed engine that you're kind of, you know, ragging all the time.
Yes.
So that seems like a pretty good shout. The steering wheels we could kind of take or leave. Obviously we can't use both, but we might pick one of them. Depends how that goes.
Yeah, the panels that came with it were pretty good. They're in good shape. We have test fitted them onto the car, so we know they sort of fit and where they go, but it would be much more fun to do something else.
Yeah, so I've been thinking of getting into composites for a while, and I figure these are great big simple sheets, so why not have a crack at making them in carbon fibre? Okay, so unfortunately the chassis didn't really set us along any particular path, so we're still pretty wide open. So we still have to decide what goes in there.
We looked at a load of V8s, because why not put a V8 in something that weighs as much as a V8? And honestly, it's because they don't fit. We looked at the Rovers and the Lexus, which are the two smaller options that we had in mind, and it was going to be tight, and then we looked at the BMW V8, because why not? Ultimately, the Rover and the Lexus just don't fit.
It was close, but as small as they are, they still weren't going to fit between the chassis rails, then the exhaust would have been hanging way outboard. It just could never happen.
It just wasn't going to work.
Yeah, just made everything a bit disappointing, really, I suppose.
Yeah, so we took a step back from the V8s and we looked at half a V8. Ford four-pots have been used in these for decades. The Pinto and the Crossflow are so instilled within kit cars that it's just the obvious choice to go to if you want to just get something done and make it work. But that's not how we work with projects. They drag on and drag on and drag on forever, hence doing something that requires us to do updates. The Z-Tech is an interesting one that you had a quick look at. A little bit more modern.
Bit more modern, bit more power, lighter, arguably, depending which version you get.
Yeah.
But even that, it's still so close to what everyone else builds that
there was no real love. Nothing really jumped out. Even though we have a load of parts that would technically work, it just didn't seem interesting. We're both VW owners. I've got a Mark II Golf and an A3. You've got a Mark I Golf, and we've both got varying engines in them. So we've got a little bit of experience, although we're far from experts. It's something that we know a little bit about. So there's things like the KR or the ABF or even a 20 valve turbo.
Yeah, I'm actually swapping a KR into my Mark I at the minute, so I've got a good idea how big the engine is, roughly what it can hold in terms of power, how to tune them, stuff like that. It seemed like a fairly good basis for making some judgments on this. Unfortunately, it's still iron, it's still really heavy sitting up in the front of that, so we were hoping to find something a bit lighter.
The outliers in the engine category we found, there's the Volvo 2.5 turbo, all aluminium block, fantastic. Or BMW inline 6, something like the 2 litre. The Volvo 5-cylinder, great. At least 1 cylinder too long to fit in the front of this car, so that's pretty much a no-go. The BMW 2 litre uses exactly the same block as the 2.2, the 2.5, the 2.8 and the 3 litre, which doesn't really help us either, because it means we may as well go for a bigger engine, but it's still not going to fit.
Yeah, we were hoping the 2 litre would be smaller, but unfortunately because they share the same block, it makes no difference.
Just not going to work.
So we started looking back at some other 4-cylinder options outside of what's usually done and outside of what we know. We bumped into the Toyota MR2 4-cylinder, was it the 3S, I think? The 3S GE or something like that. Pretty good little engine. I actually know someone back home who has one in the front of a Westfield, fairly similar to ours, but, you know, nicer. And it's a riot, makes bags of power, sounds incredible, and it's actually not that common.
But while we were looking at the MR2, we had an idea.
Yeah, if we were considering engines out of mid-rear engine sports cars, why not just take that entire package, as was designed out of the factory, and put it in the back of our project? Everything ends up the right way round. It's designed for having gear linkages running forward out of the engine rather than back. It's designed for being mounted amidships in the car. Everything kind of works. You've got rear drive that's all set up right and solves a bunch of problems. Probably causes a bunch of interesting new ones,
yeah,
but
which we can add to if we start considering some of the other engines that are available in the transverse package. Obviously this definitely rules out all the V8s, the inline sixes and things of that nature, but the 20 valve turbo, the ABF and the KR are all transverse packages which are probably about the right width.
Alright, so we've just been out to our A3, taken a couple of measurements of the engine and gearbox and everything to see roughly how it might fit in this. It turns out it won't, but it is roughly small enough that we could conceivably build something to hold it.
Yeah, it's about 32 inches across, which is about 800 mil, and it fits roughly between these two pillars here, which is great. The downside of that is that it sits a lot further back because, like most Audis and VWs, all the engines lean forward. The driveline is going to be roughly in line with this beam here, so these are still going to have to come out anyway. But then so is this, this, all the way around.
Pretty much the whole back end's going to have to come off, more or less. There's not really much of a structure that I think we could use.
No, there's this beam, even the suspension, because it's here. If we use the original stuff out of the A3, which saves us a huge amount of fab time, makes parts really easy to replace, still isn't going to mount into here, which is where the original ones probably would have gone. So we have to build new towers and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so basically everything from this, everything from our backs back
is gone.
a waste.
Yeah,